and welcome to GameSack. This episode is about games that never left North America. Some of them were actually even programmed in Japan.
Which is amazing. But this is our chance to show the world what they missed. It's your chance to be totally jealous, rest of the world.
Absolutely. And to start off, you've got a game that everyone's going to be totally jealous about.
That's right. I'm going to play it right now.
Let's do it.
The Lone Ranger on the NES is a fun action game by Konami. I've personally never really watched any of the Lone Ranger TV series. I know the main characters, but that's about as far as that goes. So the storyline in this game is that the bad guy, Butch Cavendish, killed your brother and some of his friends. And now he's kidnapped the president! This guy is a total animal, and I don't blame the Lone Ranger for wanting to put a bullet through this guy's heart, and maybe his sack as well. The Lone Ranger is a bad enough dude to rescue the president. I really like how this game plays. There's a lot of different styles of play here, and that really keeps everything interesting. You have a map, and you can visit towns and talk to people, and this is the main way you advance the story. Every town has a gun shop who sells guns and ammo. Wait, is that ammo back there, or what exactly is that? Maybe it's something for the ladies? There's also a doctor, and he's hugely expensive, and there's also a variety of people to talk to. Some have good information, and others, well, they're just a waste of time. Besides an overhead view, there are side-scrolling levels where you platform and kill bad guys, and others where you ride your horse and kill bad guys. There's even this first-person dungeon-style gameplay that works, well, it's okay. It's not that great, but it gets the job done. As you can see, it's not very smooth, and it's fairly easy to lose track where you're going as there's no map screen. At the beginning of the game, you're asked if you want to use the zapper or controller. Well, I used the zapper, and it wasn't very accurate, as you can see here. Then I went with the controller setup, and that seemed to work much better for me. Aiming the crosshair wasn't a problem at all, as it was very responsive. Overall, the game controls well. You can shoot diagonally on overhead and side-scrolling stages, which is always nice. The music definitely has that Konami sound. There's a few decent tracks that I enjoyed, but there were many others that felt and sounded just weird. I'm really amazed that this game didn't get released out of North America, as it's a very solid game. If you have the ability to play this title, I'd recommend it.
G.I. Joe is a game for the NES by Taxan based on the cartoon. It was developed in Japan by Kid. Just in case you didn't know, G.I. Joe was a toy line and a cartoon with a very nationalistic and pro-American theme. And since I doubt G.I. Joe had much appeal outside the US, I'm not really surprised that this game was only released here. Anyway, what we've got is a side-scrolling run-and-gun action game that's actually not half bad. Before each stage, you get to pick 3 different characters you'd like to tag along. Well, actually, you get to pick 2. The leader is chosen for you. Then you go off on your adventure to try and stop the evil Cobra terrorist organization. They are evil. You start out using only a melee attack, but if you press that mysterious select button, you can switch to your guns. You can swap between the characters on your team at any time by pressing start. Each character has their own life bar, so it can be useful to switch to a different character when your current one is running low on life. If any one of your characters die, you start the stage over again without that character. Honestly, when that happened to me, I usually just killed the other 2 characters off because when you continue, you start at the same place with your full team intact. And while everyone has their own life bar, they all weirdly share ammunition, and you can run out of ammo pretty quick. Switching characters isn't gonna help you, so you see that airborne thing dropping missiles on you, you're gonna have to punch it to death. And you can actually win doing this. The second part of each stage is a maze-like area where you run around and plant bombs to blow up part of Cobra. This part kind of reminds me of the Sega game Crackdown. After that, you usually have to escape and then fight the final boss of the area. I don't recognize most of the Cobra enemies. Who is this guy anyway? Each segment of a stage has its very own end boss. The graphics are pretty damn good and make great use of the MMC3 chip with multi-layered scrolling and animated backgrounds that kind of remind me of the Japanese version of Contra. The music is okay. It's not from the G.I. Joe cartoon at all, and it doesn't really stand out. Overall, it's a very challenging and kind of fun game that could have been better had it been a bit more balanced in the difficulty and amount of ammo you get. Also, those maze stages need to be less maze-like. That was followed up with G.I. Joe The Atlantis Factor by Capcom, also programmed by Kid. In this one, Cobra is using the lost city of Atlantis to bring Cobra Commander back to life, and now it's up to G.I. Joe to stop it. It's pretty similar to the first one, only much more difficult. I could not get past this guy on stage 1. After 7 tries, I still couldn't do it, and I have no interest in ever trying again, so that's really all I can say about this game. Well, maybe one more try. That's it, you bastard, you die! I showed you, I'm G.I. Joe. Anyway, after that, the game actually gets a little easier. This game is exactly the same as the first, only completely different. You still have a team, but this time you've got to earn them. But the same caveats apply. You die and the surviving members must start the entire stage over and you all share ammo. However, this time you have lots more moves you can learn and weapons you can get. Each move, weapon, and life bar for each character are all powered up independently. And wait, Storm Shadow is helping the Joes? Yeah, sure, his allegiances have never really been that strong to one faction or the other, especially in the comics, but he's more well known as a Cobra agent, I think. His sprite looks kinda goofy too. This must be some sort of redesign that I've never seen. Anyway, there are some stages that are similar with placing bombs, but they're much less maze-like here and they flow a lot more quickly. The graphics are still good, and the music has taken a step up, but there's still no G.I. Joe theme. It's not a horrible game by any means, and it should challenge you for quite a while.
Daydreamin' Davy for the NES is about a kid who can't seem to keep his mind in the real world. Every event throughout his school day makes him dream. Like right in the first scene, a bully takes his pencil. As if that's what a bully really wants is a pencil. Anyway, Davy dreams that his pencil is a golden lance and he must seek for it in medieval Europe. This is a pretty good idea for a game since the possibilities are endless. Well, the possibilities may be endless, but the size of an NES cart, that isn't. So what you have is 11 stages, but there are only 4 themes, so you'll be revisiting each stage at least once. It all works out since you'll start in different locations and have different objectives. On the bright side, you'll know what the stage layout is like the second time around. The game is generally fun to play and it flows fairly smoothly. Being an NES game, you'll notice lots of problems like sprite flicker and music cutting out at times, but it really doesn't hurt the experience. What does hurt though is when you're battling an enemy and your attacks don't land. I've got this guy down to his last bar of life and he just will not die. I'm out of bullets, so I've got to whip him. I'm guessing he can only die with a bullet. I'll just make it easier for him and die myself. One of us had to die. Bummer. I like how the game is played in a top-down style. Don't expect too much in the graphics department as nothing here is really noteworthy. Well, maybe if you consider really ugly people with odd-shaped heads appealing, then you might like the cutscenes. I don't like them. The audio is actually kind of good. The music style matches the stages fairly well. There's some digitized voices that are pretty clear considering the system. If I were to rate this game, I'd give it a 5.36 out of 10.529. Not good, but not bad either. All you gamers that don't live in North America, you're not missing much here, so don't feel too deprived by not getting this game.
Here's Eduardo, the Samurai Toaster for the Wii. This is a downloadable indie title. In this run and gun, you play as a toaster named Eduardo, and naturally toasters go out and shoot the crap out of everything in sight. It's just what toasters do. You're out to murder bread, I guess that's bread, I don't know, and other food items like carrots and bees. Delicious bees. Bees are so tasty fresh out of the toaster. You might be asking why the hell I own this game. Well, Jen actually knows one of the guys who helped make this. But now I kinda wish that they had never met, as the game really isn't that great. There's not a lot of variety in the enemies, and you'll be fighting these bigger dudes quite a bit. You'll be sick of these guys by the end of the first level. Speaking of which, there are 13 levels in all, and although you can die, you'll rarely even know it when you do. Even when you run out of lives, it seems like you automatically continue and you have 6 or more lives. You can set your life stock to infinity, but I didn't do that, I swear. Anyway, you can shoot in any direction and get some cool power-ups that last for a limited amount of time. The graphics are pretty good, though the sprites kinda look like a fancy Flash game that you'd play in your web browser back in 2004. I do like the backgrounds though. Unfortunately, there's not much stage design here, and usually once you're in a stage for only a few seconds, you've seen all it has to offer on a visual level. There are a couple of stages that have a trace amount of actual stage design and layout though, like this lava stage. And sometimes there's a horizontal shooter level to help break up the action, but you're still fighting against the same enemies and bosses. Speaking of the bosses, their attacks are all the same. They float back and forth across the screen, occasionally shooting and dropping down to your level. Like I said, it gets old really fast. The music though is pretty good. It doesn't really fit the game, but it's still very enjoyable to listen to. I think a few small things could have made this game a lot better. For one, there should have been a stage clear graphic along with a stage clear musical theme when beating the stage instead of just unceremoniously going to the loading screen. Stage introduction graphics would have helped as well. These things right here would have made it feel more like a real game. But then of course there's the repetition that this game really suffers from. I'm not really sure why this was never released elsewhere, as it would be super easy to do that with WiiWare. Oh well, I guess you guys don't have to be too jealous for us keeping this to ourselves.
Thunder 3 for the Sega Genesis. You may be familiar with Rolling Thunder arcade games or their home ports. Well, there's no arcade version of this game as it was made solely for the Genesis. What's even worse is that this game was released only in North America even though it was programmed in Japan. I guess if you live in North America then it's not a bad thing, but a good thing as you had the opportunity to play a really fun game. Rolling Thunder 3 is a single-player game that plays similar to previous games where you walk along a scrolling stage, shoot enemies, and hide behind objects while they're shooting at you. As I was playing, I kept getting the feeling that maybe this is where Namco got their idea for Time Crisis. I mean, if you think about it, you're pretty much playing a 2D version of that game. It might be a stretch, but there are similarities. So, at the beginning of each level, you can pick a special weapon to use for that area. There's a lot of nice choices here, but keep in mind that once you use a special weapon, it cannot be chosen again for the next stage. I'm not really sure why they made this way other than to get people to use more than one type of weapon. Also, each weapon that you use, be it your standard pistol or a special weapon, has a limited amount of bullets. If you run out of ammo with your standard weapon, you can still fire it, but the bullets fly really slow, just like in real life. Have no fear, because there are doors scattered throughout the levels that'll let you replenish your ammo. You still should be as frugal as possible though, and only use one bullet per enemy or 2 or 3 if they take that many hits. If you go firing like crazy, you're going to be sad very quickly. Speaking of doors, there are lots of them all over the place. Most of them don't have anything in them, but you can at least avoid a bullet by quickly entering one. I was really satisfied with the control scheme. Jay controls really well, and I like being able to shoot up at an angle. Sound effects are pretty good, but the digitized voice is low quality. There's actually one part where the voice is fairly clear. If you take too long on a stage, Ellen will tell you that enemy attacks are increasing and hurry up.
Jay! Ow! Enemy attack increasing. Hurry up!
The music overall is pretty enjoyable with some good melodies. It's a shame that the rest of the world didn't get this game as it's a lot of fun. You guys really missed out.
Alright, kind of interesting selection of games there. I still can't believe that we're the only ones who got Rolling Thunder 3.
Yeah, that is such a weird choice. I mean, whoever decided that they probably got fired immediately.
Well, I hope they did. That's a game you'd expect to be left in Japan, not left in North America.
Yeah, no doubt, really.
Anyway, I've got one that I was kind of surprised at how good it is. It's not great, mind you, but it was better than I thought it would be. And, well, here we go.
Let's see it.
Here's Bimini Run for the Genesis, which was released by New Vision early in the console's life. In this game, the evil Dr. Orca has kidnapped your sister, so you jump in a boat and try to get her back. Fortunately, that boat has lots of weapons on board. You can shoot down enemies with 3 different shots, all of which have unlimited ammo. There's the low shot so you can take down boats, there's a high shot to take down helicopters, and finally there's a cannon which shoots further the longer you hold down the button for destroying land-based targets. Everything seems to die in one hit, and it's very satisfying destroying things. What you may not expect is that this game takes place in a 3D world. You just don't travel straight ahead. You can turn in any direction at any time. Often you'll have to find radio towers that are on islands and shoot them down. You have a map which can assist you in finding these things, but unfortunately there's no map on screen as you play. And while you can't run out of ammo, you most certainly can run out of fuel, and there's no way to recover it other than to beat the stage before it runs out. Even dying won't give you any fuel back. Speaking of dying, it can be pretty easy to do this as well. Just like the enemies, you also die with one hit or if you run aground. I mean, come on, boats always explode when they touch the shore, don't they? At first I thought this game was kinda tedious, but then I learned that every time they call me on the radio, I need to press start to see the new message.
Kenji, come in.
And that tells me exactly what I need to do next and what I should look for. You only have 6 missions, and granted they can seem pretty big, but once you get the hang of it, it's really not that bad. In fact, it's kind of fun. The graphics are pretty good and give a nice sense of roaming around in a 3D world, but unfortunately they don't really change much other than the time of day. The music is extremely forgettable, but at least it's not annoying. There's even a weird 2-player mode. Basically, player 1 drives the boat while player 2 steers and fires the guns. Actually, this is how the characters in the game are doing it, so you and a buddy might as well too. I have no idea why this wasn't released anywhere else. It could have found moderate success. I certainly don't recommend paying a high price for it, but if you see one in the wild, give it a good home.
Kenji, come in.
Trampoline Terror for the Genesis is an overhead action game developed by Messiah and released by DreamWorks. You take the role of some dude who is actually called the Trampoline Terror. He is named this because he is so brave and he will go where no other man will go. He has no fear of heights and blah blah blah. So the goal of each level is to detonate a certain number of bombs on each stage while avoiding enemies and using trampolines to jump high or across small gaps. For the most part, the game isn't challenging, and finding and detonating all the bombs is very easy. So easy, in fact, that the game gets boring really quick. Avoiding enemies is a breeze, as most of them seem to pay no attention to you. You can easily walk right by them. Or if they're actually going after you, they move so slow that you don't even have any problems just walking around them. The bullet is the only enemy that will actually give you a hard time, but you do have a weapon like a spring bomb, and that will take care of them quickly. For a game that is based on trampolines, I really never made it a point to use them. Of course I use them to jump over gaps, but other than that I just walked over them. But if I did decide to use them, the trampoline doesn't last forever. They change colors once you jump on them. When a trampoline turns red, that means you have one jump left and then it breaks. There are so many trampolines around that even if one breaks, there are 20 others you can use to get the job done. Graphically, the game is okay, the scrolling effect is nice to look at, and the backgrounds will change every 5 stages or so, which breaks up the monotony. The music will also change with the backgrounds, but it's not very noteworthy. All in all, this is just a very mediocre game, and I really don't ever feel the need to play it again. It's no wonder why it was cancelled for a Japanese release, and never planned for a Euro Australia or even a South America release. My advice to you would be just go ahead and buy your own trampoline. It's a lot more fun.
This is Seed, the Contra Adventure. Despite having a name that sounds like a Game Boy game, this is actually for the PlayStation. It's made by Appaloosa, the very same people behind Echo the Dolphin and Colibri. The game starts out semi-promising enough. It's a polygonal side-scrolling run-and-gun action game with similar play mechanics that the series is known for. Unfortunately, the graphics here look a lot worse than the NES to me. Everything is just so sloppy looking, ill-defined, and nothing stands out at all. But the controls are okay, and you can switch between a bunch of different weapons after you pick them up. Unfortunately, the game takes a big nosedive after stage 1. Suddenly, you're running around in a 3D environment with slightly different controls, and you're shooting things up and working your way from area to area. I don't know why they thought Contra needed this. If you get motion sickness in video games, you'll definitely want to avoid this one, as the camera is pretty slow and very twitchy. Fortunately, you can use the analog controller, but it's still very sloppy, especially when you're trying to jump on a platform. Each stage after this seems to try to change things up even more for some reason. This stage has a very distant view above the player instead of behind the player. And this one has you free floating around in a falling elevator or something like that. It's like the game just can't decide what it wants to be. My favorite stage though has gotta be this one, which pays homage to the corridor stages in the first game. Now, it's not a great stage by any means, but it's the only one that held my interest and also the only one that I thought had any sort of visual appeal. Finally, in the very last stage, you're treated to a side-scrolling run-and-gun again. But honestly, pretty much everything about this game is awful. The stage design, the stages themselves, especially this one, the visuals, and yes, even the music. So don't feel too bad that we kept this little gem all to ourselves. These PlayStation Contra games nearly killed off the entire series, and if this one had been released worldwide, the series might have never been revived, who knows? I've got to recommend that you stay away from this one.
Tin Star for the Super Nintendo is a shooting game. There are 3 ways you can play this game, from the Super Scope to the mouse to a standard controller. Back when I bought this game in 1994, I used the controller as I felt it was the best at the time. If you want to see us play about 6 seconds of this game with the Super Scope, check out our very first episode. I'm using a mouse for this review, and I gotta say I like it better than the standard controller. The only problem is that you have to have some sort of table to use the mouse on if you want to do it effectively. I really like how everything is set up. You are Tinstar, the new sheriff in town. The game will take you through the 7 days of the week starting on Monday. Each day begins with a training round of shooting and juggling bottles for extra money. And money is just points, you don't ever actually buy anything. Next is an action scene, which is different every day. Sometimes you're in a first-person mode shooting at enemies in a bar or trying to keep bad guys from breaking a friend out of jail. I like these the best, as it feels like I'm playing a shooting gallery. The bar, for example, has lots of stuff you can shoot in the background that'll break or respond to your shots. Other levels have some nice line scrolling effects as the camera pans back and forth as you shoot bad guys. The other type of action stage has you defending Tinstar as he makes his way through a level. You don't control him, but you do shoot everything that's after him on screen. Then the day will close out with a showdown. These are actually really fun and can be intense while you're waiting for the draw icon to appear. This is just a really well-made game. The graphics are great and everything has personality to it. The dialogue in the cutscenes is actually entertaining. And the music is perfect for this game. It really conveys a Western feel to it and seems to borrow some melodies from old cowboy movies and TV shows. I have only one minor complaint about this game, and that is the shooting reticle is huge and it sometimes feels like it's in the way. That's it. Other than that, this is a perfectly enjoyable and very solid game. All you poor gamers outside of America really missed out on a great game here. If you have the ability to play this, then by all means do it. You won't be sorry.
Do you like Cheetos? Well, fantastic, because here's Chester Cheetah, Too Cool to Fool on the Genesis. Chester Cheetah is the official mascot for these Cheetos puff thingies. And now he's in his own game! Yay! He's trying to escape from the zoo because he's way too cool for it, and for some reason he needs to find a tire before he can complete any of the levels. Chester also collects little icons which eventually give him an extra continue, as well as cheesy poof icons which refill his life bar. And when your life bar runs out, it's game over. You have a jump button, a dash button, and that's it. And you can't even dash until you collect a little shoe icon. There's other icons that you can collect as well, like this guitar. And the only purpose of this icon is to show you how cool Chester is. And he is way cool. Too cool to fool, in fact. You can try and fool him, but no, he's too cool for that. Seriously, this is all the icon does. And you can't even stop it until it's done. Okay, moving on. You'd better watch out for this icon, as it can get you into trouble if you accidentally pick it up, since Chester moves all around and even off of safe platforms. Oops. As you probably can tell just by looking at the footage here, the collision detection is awful. Some things you think you can touch, you can't, and other things you think won't touch, you do, even though they're in the background. So that really brings this game down quite a few notches. Chester also seems to respond very slowly. But hey, at least the graphics are really bright and colorful. Overall, it's a very nice game to look at. The music certainly isn't horrible, but some of the sound effects are pretty bad. Listen to him jump. Yes, every time he jumps, he makes that sound effect. What kind of sound effect is that? I really didn't have a lot of fun with this one. But wait, there's also a Super Nintendo version that was also only released in North America. This is basically the exact same game, except the colors are maybe a bit more bold and he doesn't have that annoying jump sound effect. Take a look at them both right here in this daring side-by-side comparison. Which one would you be more proud to display on your shelf or maybe a locked glass cabinet? Say what you will about the graphics and sound, but the Super Nintendo version has much worse controls. I just could not be precise in my dash jumps at all, so I've got to give the nod to the Genesis version. This game did see an unofficial release in Spain by an importer, but it was never officially released there. It's hard to believe that this game got a sequel called Chester Cheetah Wild Wild Quest, another North American exclusive. This is the Genesis version here, and this time you're trying to collect all of the pieces of the map to Hip City. Sounds like an exciting place. Too bad the game isn't very exciting. You now have one-hit deaths and even worse collision detection. Those two do not mix well at all. Sometimes you'll die when bouncing on enemies as you try and kill them. Other times it seems like you die from touching nothing. But if you get a bag of Cheetos, that will allow you to take one more hit. The graphics are less impressive this time around as well. The music and sound have also been degraded. But what about the Super Nintendo version? I mean, it's gotta be better because the Super Nintendo has Chrono Trigger, right? Well, it might be slightly better in the graphics and sound departments, but it is plagued with so much slowdown that it's almost unplayable. It's really, really bad. Here's another brave side-by-side comparison showing you both versions. Which one would be the first to be tossed in your trash can? If you have to play a Chester Cheetah game, go for the Genesis version of the first game and stay away from this one.
Alright, there you have it, a group of games that never made it out of the North American continent.
And are you guys really jealous about these games?
I don't think they are, Joe. I just don't think people are going to be as jealous as we wanted them to be.
Oh, come on. You guys gotta want Chester Cheetah. I mean, it's so awesome. You guys missed out. Chester Cheetah. He is too cool to fool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Contra, the Contra adventure?
Uh-huh.
Oh, man, what a beautiful
Yeah,
game.
you missed some great stuff.
Of course,
there,
I'm being a
so.
total smartass. So, anyway, is there any more games in this subject that you'd like us to cover? There are more games that were left
Yes.
in America, but how about stuff you'd like to actually see
Yeah,
us talk
something
about?
that's worth talking about.
I don't know. Anyway, if you can, let us know. And in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack. You know, Dave, I am liking these country exclusive episodes that we're doing, and I think our audience does too. We just need to have more countries to talk about, I guess. And what is there, like Tectoy in
for Brazil. Yeah.
And what else?
Left in China. Let's do Left in China.
China.
They've got tons of exclusive stuff, like Einhander here. This is a Chinese exclusive of Einhander.
Really?
Yeah, I bought it, and it's the only one that I know of. I mean, I dare you to find a copy of Einhander just like this.
Really?
Yeah. And also Time Gal here. Time Gal for the Sega CD. This, I was promised, was not a bootleg or pirated or anything.
Dave, both of these are bootlegs. I mean, look at
No
this.
way.
There's not even any instructions. It's just a copy and a reprint of a game on lower quality media.
I should know better.
You really, really should. You are an idiot.
And I
like
paid a lot
always.
for Einhander.
I really am not some freaking idiot.